In Singapore's history, a sultan was humiliated in public. A Muslim family lost land worth over $2 billion. And an entire civilization was split apart overnight. 3 different centuries, 3 different stories, same ending. Power shifts, land changes hands, and we're told to forget. But what if forgetting isn't an accident? What if the same playbook is still being used today? This isn't just about old history books or faded maps. The same patterns that erased sultans and stripped families of wealth are the same patterns shaping the skyline you see outside your window right now, the road you drive on, the towers you work in, even the neighborhoods you grew up in. They didn't just appear, they replaced something. And most of us were never told what was lost. That's the real story. What's missing, not what's left behind. Because when memory disappears, power gets to rewrite the past and decide the future. So let's start at the beginning. The first erasure. The day a sultan's dignity was torn down brick by brick. Sometimes, what's erased isn't just a building. It isn't just a name on a street sign or a photo in an old book. It's an entire pattern, a pattern that plays out so often, across so many decades, that we stop recognizing it for what it is. We think of history as events strung together, but here, the same story keeps repeating. Different characters, different eras, but always the same ending. The first story takes us back to centuries. It starts with a deal, the kind of deal that makes it into the history books as nation building, but hides the power games behind it. A viral TikTok calls it out. Stanford Raffles didn't elevate Sultan Hussein out of loyalty or justice. He did it to weaken the Malays and take their land. The British made promises they never intended to keep. First, they cut off the Sultan's access to port revenues, the lifeblood of Singapore's economy at the time. Without that, he couldn't pay his court, his guards, even his own debts. And when you've emptied a ruler's coffers, you don't need to depose him. He's already a puppet. Then came the insult that history barely bothers to mention. Convicts, sent by the British, tore down the wall around the royal compound in Kampong Glam Dat, not for war, not even for some grand urban plan to build a road. The detail is real. Historians agree it happened. What they argue about is the intent. Was it a deliberate act of humiliation or just the cold, clinical logic of colonial expansion? We may never know for sure, but one thing is clear. Once the British controlled the ports, they controlled the money. And in a trading port, money is power. Fast forward to the 20th century this time. It wasn't a sultan, it was an entire community. The Arabs were the largest private landowners in Singapore, bigger even than the Jewish community. By some estimates, they held 3/4 of all privately owned land. And then came the Land Acquisition Act. It sounded bureaucratic, even reasonable. A way for the government to secure land for public purposes. But here's the twist. Until the 1980s, compensation was pegged to 1973 prices. In a rapidly growing city, that's not just outdated, it's daylight robbery by legislation. Take the Salim Talib family. They owned prime plots stretching from Robinson Road to Clarke Quay. Today, that land could be worth over $2 billion. Under the act, they were paid $8 million for what would now be $2,000 million. Supporters say this law made Singapore possible. That without it, we wouldn't have HDB flats, Changi Airport, the MRT, and maybe they're right. But it is also true that this erased the wealth of one of the richest Muslim families in the country. And with it, any chance of a Muslim billionaire class in Singapore. We often talk about how the British divided Malays, Chinese, and Indians in Tanah Malays. That was visible, easy to point to. But the deeper fracture came earlier, in 1824, with the Anglo-Dutch Treaty. It didn't just draw borders on a map. It split the Malayu Raya, the Malay world, into separate colonies overnight. Our people of Rio, Johor, Sumatra, Java, Singapore, that's what's gonna put you, became citizens of different empires. And over time, we were taught to see each other as foreigners, not family, not allies, foreigners. Our conversations shrank to fit the borders they drew for us. We were told to think small, to keep our politics, our struggles, within our island. We were told not to seek help from the same people who once shared our language, our culture, our faith. And so we stayed dependent. We stayed small. That's the pattern. From a sultan stripped of his dignity, to a family stripped of its fortune, to a people stripped of their unity. The story changes, the names change, the centuries change, but the ending doesn't. Power shifts, land changes hands, and we are told to forget. If the first part of this story is about what's been erased, the next part is about what's here, right now, but locked away, out of sight, and out of mind. Most Singaporeans will never set foot on Pulau Tekong, never walk the length of Tengah Air Base, never see the underground MRT service tunnels that keep the city moving. These aren't tourist spots you're missing out on. They're part of your country's invisible spine, and you're not invited. Security is the official reason, but secrecy as a side effect. It's easier to hide problems when the public can't see the machinery. It's not just military zones. There are whole lifestyles that exist behind glass. Private islands like Lazarus before redevelopment. Members-only spaces in the heart of the CBD. They're not illegal. They're just invisible to most, and even in the open. Erasure still happens. Old housing blocks, wet markets. Entire communities have vanished quietly in the last decade. No speeches, no plaques, just gone. Every year, there's less of the Singapore you can touch, smell, and argue in, and more of the one you can only see in marketing brochures. None of this happens by accident. Erasure has a purpose, and the purpose is control. Control the space, and you control the story. Control over land means control over who lives there, what they can afford, and which histories survive. Clear a street, and you don't just move people. You remove their memory from the geography. The economics are simple. Old, messy places are undervalued. Replace them with high-rent developments and the profits soar. But profit is clean, and history is inconvenient. The past has to be rewritten or removed to fit the brochure. The more you forget, the easier it is to accept whatever comes next. Lose your historical anchors, and you'll accept the official version without question. That's not just economics. That's psychology. If the Singapore of the past was erased, and the present is hidden, then what's coming is something entirely new, and you won't have a say unless you see it now. The next decade will bring projects that dwarf Marina Bay's transformation, Greater Southern Waterfront, Tua's Megaport, new MRT lines. With each project, the land you knew will change, sometimes beyond recognition. The danger isn't just losing old places. It's losing the right to decide what replaces them. The further decisions move from public view, the easier it is to make them without you. From a sultan's wall, to a family's fortune, to a civilization's unity, to the skyline rising in front of you. Erasure has never been about the past. It's about the future they want. And the less you remember, the easier it is for them to build it without you. If you want to know the real Singapore, don't just look at what's there. Ask why something isn't.